Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer. I am so excited to be here. I mean, especially after a 6-point week. I don't remember the last time that we've been able to talk about Nashville getting 2 wins in a row in this way. This has to be this is the first win streak of the year, right?
Yes, yes. I'm looking at it right now, actually.
It's the
It's
first
the
time that
first,
Nashville's won a home game since May.
yeah, it's also the first time they've won two games back to back in any month. So
And we get to celebrate that here on this show today. And I'm so excited to do it. Pharmaceutical Soccer. Of course, you just heard Clay Trainum and Valer Shabilla, my counterparts, my colleagues, my friends, I I do a podcast, other hosts.
Ran out of steam there, didn't he?
Yeah, I did.
partners in soccer to steal one from the extra time folks.
Stealing stuff now. That's great, Valer.
That makes us partners in crime.
There you go.
Well, anyways, we always start off the show with getting understanding on your guys' weekend. So, Valer, what's up? You took a trip this weekend.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the weekend. It was during the week, but I did go to Atlanta to watch the Copa America opener. And I feel like I should talk about it because I think the feelings and vibes around international tournaments are like so different than your week to week MLS vibes or just any league vibes. It was really cool. Like we got to our hotel on Wednesday night, and like the jerseys were already out on town. The hotel that the team was staying at was like a block away from our hotel. Yes, play.
Did you run to Atlanta when you need a few dollars?
Oh, geez.
Uh, no, I lost a few dollars in Atlanta. Um, I mean, I was on the lookout for two chains, but he wasn't around. I didn't see him. Because he told me that I'm good, but he lied apparently. Um, anyway, um, yeah, Atlanta. It was. I mean, we've all been to Atlanta. We've all been. Obviously, Clay lived around the area for a little bit too, so you guys know how it is, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have been there. I mean, every time I go to that city, I have a good time. Honestly, it's one of those where there's always something going on, and I've never spent like a long period there, but I've been there, I don't know, 5 6 times for like 3 4 days every time, and it's always been a good time. It's always been fun. So anyway, we're staying like a block away from the Argentina hotel, which was also fun because there were fans there at all times. But yeah, the jerseys in our hotel, I kid you not, 99.9% Argentina. I saw like 4 Canada jerseys in our hotel. It's kind of hilarious. But you know, I wasn't really rooting for either any team, but I was more so just on the underdog sort of situation. So obviously, I was more on the Canada side, I guess. But honestly, it was one of the best soccer games I've been to, just in terms of experience, in terms of the atmosphere. It felt like I wasn't in the U.S. The Argentina fans were, singing in Spanish. They were having all there's like 3 songs that they mainly sing, and that's it. But it's a stadium of 70,000 soccer fans, and shout out to the Canada fans because, man, they were out there. I mean, there were very few of them again compared to the Argentina fans. I wouldn't even put them at like 5% of the stadium, maybe at most. And you could hear them, especially when we were in the 300 level. There was like a group of them, and they were really loud. They were cheering on their teams, and I wasn't shocked necessarily, but I was very, very, very impressed with how Canada played. For anybody who didn't watch that match, I mean, Canada held their own really well. And I know the final result was 2-0, but like Canada could have scored a couple, Argentina could have scored a couple. It was a very entertaining match back and forth between the two. And that is Jesse Marsh's Canada, by the way. So, yeah, I mean, I think I would leave with this. I think the USMNT really missed an opportunity to have Jesse Marsh as the coach, and I think like the U.S. Soccer Federation has to be a little bit regretful to not have at least made that happen at any point since he left Leeds.
I would still be interested in knowing how it would work with him as coach. I'm not 100. I'm less convinced by him after his stint at Leeds, even though I know it's tough to coach a relegation side because I've watched one for several years. But it would be interesting. I will say the thing that stuck out to me, Schaffelberg probably arguably could have gotten a penalty uh,
Hmm.
in that game, which would have been kind of a fun little thing there. I've obviously been watching the Canadian national team in recent years as well as the U.S. one, so very exciting there. But on some level, I am like pretty interested to see if Marsh can finally push this team forward because it looked like Canada was not going to be necessarily the king of CONCACAF or anything like that, but it looked like they were making strides towards that. And then it just kind of lost a bunch of steam um, over the last maybe 6 to 8 months. So I'm interested in seeing if they can sort of recapture the moment that Canadian soccer was in going into the last World Cup.
And I mean, like Schaffelberg, since we're talking about this from an SC perspective, Schaffelberg had a really good cameo off the bench. I mean, he was very effective, and you can see it. I mean, obviously, I was on the pit on the field, but not on the field. I was on the in the stands, but like you can see it. I heard multiple people. I got texts and I was reading tweets and stuff like that of people saying, "Wow, like he really it looks up to par there." And then also Alistair Johnston had a really good game. I know with his NSC connection, and I'm pretty sure I ran into his parents afterwards because there were three people with with Johnston jerseys, and they looked like about that age. And I just saw one jersey, and I was like, "Oh, Alistair had a great game today." Like I was just kind of we were crossing the street, and they were and the woman turned around and said thank you, and I was like, well, that you know, a non-family member probably wouldn't say thank you to that. They would say yes or no. But yeah, so that was nice. Also,
I do think that Schaffelberg is a guy who can fit in playing in a Marsh team really well. He does prioritize a lot of the things that Schaffelberg does well for NSC. So I'm excited to see what happens there.
So good weekend.
Oh,
oh
my
yeah, and the
weekend.
weekend was fine, I guess. That we came back, we came back home and had a wedding, but and obviously went to the NSC game. So all good stuff. I highly recommend going to a Copa America game if you can swing it.
I also highly recommend going to an NSC game, which is what I did over the weekend.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just assuming if you're listening to this, you go to NSC games.
Yeah. Uh,
I
the only thing I
unfortunately,
really did this weekend was other than the NSC game, was I obviously watched the Kendrick Lamar concert, which was a blast, and I recommend you watching that as well.
let me tell you, I watched a lot of soccer over the weekend, and I get sad in these group stage games for Euros when they're at the same time because it's not just 9 noon, 3 p.m., just your whole day. Now it's just at one time. And I don't know what to do to fill the rest of the day. Kind of sucks. Like I guess I should work maybe. Um,
I
but
was very disappointed they didn't have a like a what would be for you 9 o'clock, what 8 a.m. for us yesterday. Because I was like waking up Sunday and I was like, oh, this is a perfect day to like relax and just watch some soccer. But the games didn't start till 2. And then I had to go to this wedding, so I didn't even watch the USMNT game. So kind of messed it up for me, honestly.
So it's funny. I saw a tweet earlier today, and it's a classic like, what they need at the Olympics is the average person next to all these Olympians for a point of
Mhm,
reference.
mhm.
And someone said that's Scotland playing in international tournaments.
Oh God.
That was such a downer of a game. Sorry.
well, look, we're in good spirits. We're happy. We get to talk about a couple wins from a Nashville SC perspective and pretty convincing wins in some areas and some spots. Going to it was a busy and tough week as well. Like the vibe wise, like obviously we're still going through coach experiences as the US match was going on. I'm like, oh, I wonder what BJ Callahan's doing on the laptop right now. Is he going over Nashville tactics while the game's going on? What's happening here? Um, but I mean, you got to give it up to the squad. You got to give it up to Rumba to get some of these vibes at least corrected within the team that they can win and they can do it.
Yeah, I think when you look at what the team has, I mean, we just said it, right? This is the first time they won back-to-back games. That's the team that Rumba inherited. Now, I know Walker Zimmerman came back from injury, and there are a couple things going on, but also this squad is missing Anibal Godoy, is missing Jacob Schaffelberg, and it's missing Shaq Moore. 3 starters, nailed on starters, pretty much every single game. So it's not like he has a full squad either. And obviously, like we don't talk about as much, but Randall Leal and Lucas McNunn are still injured. So 5, if not starters, regulars missing from this team, and results are still coming in. And we talked about like a new manager bounce or what that might look like. This is a more maybe sustainable is the word I'm looking for. This is a more sustainable new manager bounce where it's like over 7 games, we see them lose only once and win 3 times. This is where what we've seen in the past when a manager gets let go is that the new manager comes in or the interim manager comes in, they win 1 or 2 matches, and then it's like back to normal, which is like losses and draws. This is a little bit more sustainable, and I think it's done in a way that he definitely left his mark. I think for Rumba, I think he left his mark on this squad and on this team. Even if he's not the manager, obviously going forward, I think we all are going to look back into this period and say he did something here. He wasn't just there to fill in the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is it's not really a bounce. It's more like a return to normal for this SC time. For like, again, 7 matches, 3 draws, 3 wins, and a very confusing loss. Although New England has been playing a lot better. At the time, that loss looked a lot worse than it was.
4 wins straight, man. Ever since I started talking smack, they have 4 wins straight.
But either way, like, and I wonder sometimes because the New England looked like it was imploding right before. So maybe that was part of their push. And so maybe that loss, like in retrospect, doesn't look as bad as it did at the time. But either way, that's a fairly normal Nashville stretch where you get a win that makes no sense. So like a win against Cincinnati followed up by a loss that makes no sense, and then filtered in results and not giving up goals. And so I think it makes sense that while Rumba's come in and kind of steadied the ship, this is also a veteran laden team. And this is a coaching staff because they kept the coaches other than Guppy behind that have weathered the storm with a fairly typical run of games from Nashville SC over the last several years. Like, I'm not taking credit away from Rumba because he's changed the formation, he's changed people coming in, he's brought in young guys that maybe wouldn't have played otherwise. But what we've seen is kind of the return to what we would have expected over a 7-game stretch from Nashville SC, just generally speaking, over the last several years.
Yeah, and we talked about this stretch of games, these 5 games, right? Red Bulls away, Toronto away, NYCFC at home, Inter Miami at home, Columbus away. This was the 5-game stretch that we were like, this is a very unfair position for it to put an interim through, right? And they are still undefeated in that stretch in 3 games now. And if you had told me maybe before that 5-game stretch started, Nashville SC would come out with 7 points, which they've already guaranteed, I would have said that's a pretty respectable thing to get out of this 5-game stretch. They've already got those 7 points, right? So, like, to me, these next 2 games, Inter Miami at home, Columbus away, you definitely don't want to lose at home. I think if you get a point out of those 2 games, it's like just cherry on top of those 7 points. I know, like you don't want to lose, of course, as a team, you don't want to lose, you don't want to tie, you want to keep on going with this run. But 7-8 points from this stretch of 5 games that are very difficult for an interim manager in this missing players, I think is really, really as good as you can get.
And I don't want to spend a ton of time on it just because I think we kind of know the answer, but I think it's worth just like kind of giving an understanding with kind of Rumba in the position that he is, where the team is progressing. Do you give Rumba more time to kind of go through with this, or is it just kind of the follow-up of Gary getting let go that this team has finally started to pick up?
I don't know about the second part of it, but I think for Rumba himself, I don't think he's ready for this jump. And everything he said, everything Mike Jacobs has said, and everything to come out from the team is that everyone is in agreement and is on the same point, on the same page that he is the interim manager. And once they hire a manager, he will go back to his old job, which is player development, which he says he loves doing that part, right? Now, what I would say is that this little stint might make it that he has other opportunities going forward, maybe an assistant sort of job. And I know somebody mentioned Roden, who writes about Huntsville. I was talking to him a little bit, and he was saying that maybe he'll be considered for the Huntsville job. That's another thing. That's another route that he can go if he wants to continue this head coaching thing. But I think for Nashville SC, they've been very clear about his role, and he's been okay with it.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that, like when I was at the Huntsville home game, just a week ago, Rumba was there, and he wasn't, and he was there for multiple reasons. He's there because he's the Nashville manager, but he's also there because part of his job is tracking those guys in Huntsville. What I will say is that I hope that he goes down the coaching path. If that's something that he wants to do, obviously what he wants to do should be the most important here. But there is a shockingly terrible history of MLS teams and professional soccer teams in America, but more over the world, hiring black head coaches. And we've discussed it on this show before. It's a really, really awful like statistic that there are so very few that get hired in MLS and USL and on down, even in college soccer. And if this is something that Rumba Mentali wants to pursue, I really hope that Nashville will help present him opportunities, because I think he's shown that he can do the job. And I really hope that someone takes him up on it.
Well, he's definitely shown he can do the job over the past week or so with these two matches that we did have, and we will talk about them more in depth next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also, of course, follow us on our Patreon. We do have one of those at PharmaSoccer. It really does help the show. It helps us keep doing what we're doing. We love doing this. We love having this coverage for y'all every single week, and we want to continue doing that. So your Patreon memberships do help with that, just $5 a month. Thank you to everybody that already is a part of the show. It is part of the Patreon. We really appreciate it. I know, Valère, you've been doing those live chats, right? During the matches?
Yeah, we're trying it out. For folks, we can chat during the match. I mean, people can always message us if they just want us to see it, but the chats are something we're trying out where, you can chat with the other Patreon members as well as us three. Also, if you are already a Patreon member or you want to find another way to help us out, you can always leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's what it's called. It's not called iTunes anymore. And if you give us a 5-star review, you can write whatever you want, and we will read it on this show. Well, within reason. Please don't, we don't want your manifesto in there. But
write a review that disses Kendrick Lamar, and we'll make Valère read it on air.
No, sure, I can do that. I've seen that man live 4 times. I like him way too much. Yeah, just write us a review. Give us 5 stars on Apple. It helps us a lot, as well as the Patreon, of course, like Steven said.
Yeah, look, and we have a lot to talk about with these matches. I think we'll start with Wednesday just because I feel like that'll be easiest to talk about. Our match in Toronto, the 2-1 win. I'm sure Clay had fun adding that one back into the Nashville Soccer archive. If you did not know, on Clay's channel, he has like the last minute 90th minute goals on his website, which is amazing. With 2 goals from Sam Surridge and Nashville getting that late winner to win 2-1. I'm just going to start off and say it personally and just ask you guys the question. Is Sam Surridge possibly the most frustrating player of all time? Yes or no? And the reason I say that is because of the fact he either does some of the most miraculous and cool things I've ever seen, and then will miss a wide open net in the worst way I've ever. How does this work? Like, I love his confidence when he's confident. And it's really good to see him get on the score sheet. But man, I would love some consistency.
I mean, it seems weird to put that on Sam Surridge when Randall Leal's on the same team. So, all I'm saying is I don't want it to be lost in the sauce that the first half of that game was one of the worst halves I've seen this team play in a long time. And I don't think we should forget that. And Nashville was very fortunate to only be down a goal.
Yeah,
Um,
very
but
fortunate, very fortunate.
but the but yeah, like Surge, I it's very funny because I feel like I have to look into the numbers on this, but I feel like he has more games where he scored 2 goals than where he scored one. It's got to be pretty close. Like it
Right.
seems like if he scores one, he scores a second. But it is nice though to know that he presents you a type of versatility that we haven't seen from some of the other options. I mean, we thought that we would see Teal Bunbury maybe go out wide a little bit whenever he first signed for Nashville, and it never really happened. And he doesn't really, it didn't really seem like it suited him as well as maybe we'd hoped. Because he's not the same Teal Bunbury that he was, 5-10 years ago. But it is nice to know that Serge can move out there, that he can work in different formations and be successful and score goals. And seeing that was very nice. Also seeing him with that trademark finish that he wasn't able to pull off against the New York Red Bulls a week prior. Just kind of exactly what you want to see from Sam Surridge.
But I think when you look at his time in Nashville, I don't think there's a doubt that he is the best striker Nashville has ever had in terms of talent, in terms of even finishing ability. I mean, CJ Sapong is probably the most prolific striker Nashville had. Maybe Daniel Rios if you count USL as well. But I think Sam Surridge has something that those two guys don't, which is his age. I don't think many people realize he's only 25 years old. I mean, at 25, you still got, 5 or so years of your prime still going. So I think, we look at it from like a Hani Mukhtar perspective. The 25, 26 is where Hani really hit his stride, right? In terms of his playing time. And I think in terms of his skill as well. So I think there's something to be said about that. He's a lot more comfortable in this Nashville team. But what I love the most about this situation is that he changes his position and there's very little fuss. There's no fuss. There's no, I don't want to play on the wing. There's no, I'm the DP striker, like play me in. Something Tyler Boyd said to answer my question after Saturday's game. He said we are like brothers. He said this squad is like brothers. Like we are all together in this. And you hear players say that a lot. You hear it like we've Jack Mayer has said that in the past as well, something along those lines at least. Walker Zimmerman has talked about his leadership and stuff like that. But it's different when you start seeing it and you know that those aren't just cliches that the players are saying it. I think when they were losing, they kind of stuck together, and now that they're winning, they're still sticking together. And I think being able to kind of put that.
For
Well,
once, it's not Steven's internet.
for once, it's not Steven's internet. I
uh,
love this
but
person.
put that into words, but then also on the pitch.
We're just gonna have random Valair drops of information while he's cooking,
Absolutely. I'm here for
and
random
just
Valair drops of information, and I don't think he has any idea that he totally just disconnected for about 10 seconds while going on his conversation yet. But it was very nice
Oh,
to
my bad.
it was you specifically. But I
a
mean,
team of brothers.
that's one thing that we've like just even just from like behind the scenes conversations, just even like talking to some of the players in USL that have always been like the team has always been really well put together, and that is something that you can give Mike Jacobs some sort of credit for. Is that the personalities of the players, the way that the team interacts has always been pretty positive from what I have seen. There hasn't been a ton of those situations.
Well, and that is that we talked about it before. They almost talk about the locker room as if it's a player,
Right.
like in chemistry as if it's a player, and that is like all the criticisms of Mike Jacobs aside, like that is why a team can go through a bad run of form, a poor run of form, and then lose a coach, and then turn around and beat an FC Cincinnati, team playing like one of the best teams in the league on the road. Like that is why that happens, is because a lot of times there's that intangible benefit of playing for each other and things like that. And it's why I'm not really concerned about when the new coach comes in that they're going to find a way to do it. Because like Valair mentioned earlier, you talk about the new manager bounce. that's something that's associated with bad teams. Like a team's not playing well, new manager comes in, they play well for 3 weeks, and then they kind of regress to back where they were. Nashville gets a new manager, at least an interim manager, and it's a sustained level of improvement. And that comes from getting confidence. That comes from having someone, competent running the show. But it also comes from having veterans who are putting in, not put in a great position to win, especially with players out on international duty, but still managing to get results. And that comes from that sort of veteran, mature locker room setup. Now, what we haven't seen is how that works with a young player on the come up. That's where we haven't really seen Nashville figure it out, because there hasn't been a lot of young players playing, first off, other than like draft picks and things like that. But also, like, there hasn't been a ton of people that have come out of the academy and into this sort of established veteran mature locker room. And that's where it's going to be really interesting to watch now that guys like Isaiah Jones are making the bench. Obviously, Ajago comes out of the draft, but he's a young player. People like that, that's where I'm interested in seeing kind of what this next page looks like. And maybe that's why getting a player development person, in there makes that step so interesting.
Ajago was not drafted. He was an undrafted signing after the
You know
draft.
what I mean? Sorry, I misspoke.
I
Coming
love
out of
it.
the
I think the best
coming
part
out
about
of
that is that is something that Clay would have rightfully
I
corrected.
know, yeah.
coming
He
out
would
of
have,
the
if I
college
had said
ranks.
that, he would have been the one to say, well, actually, he wasn't drafted. So I just to rub it in Clay's face for once. I'm
And
okay
if
with
I would have said that, he would have been like, Steven, you moron. He wasn't drafted. There
it.
would
I
have
have
been
never
some sort
called
of
you a
insult.
moron. I have never called you a moron. But either way, coming out of the college ranks.
No, and I mean, you bring up a really good point. We've seen a lot of those, like maybe 22, 23, 24-year old like Schaffelberg and even Jack Mayer. We have yet to see the 17, 18, 19-year olds, right? We just don't have that history with Nashville SC. So I think that's going to be a really good sort of transition. And it's important to know. The other thing I wanted to note is that Isaiah Jones did make the bench for Toronto's game and the NYCFC game, which is both like really, really good sign. He's the first ever homegrown player to make a MLS bench for Nashville SC, and Forster Jago came on, though very few minutes for both games, but he did come on both games. So that's a really positive side. That's something that's kind of moving towards that younger core of the team, maybe. And both of those players started for Huntsville on Sunday, albeit in a loss 2-1 to Cincinnati. But it's good to see that making the bench and maybe playing a few minutes doesn't necessarily take away from their Huntsville minutes, because those minutes are very important to them, as that's where they're getting most of their playing time.
And then coming back from Toronto specifically, we played back at home at Geodis against a very, very good NYCFC team, getting their starting striker back, that in the starting 11 for them. But we were able to shut NYCFC down, getting the 1-0 win at home, with Tyler Boyd getting a goal, which was probably needed from his end to get a bit of confidence in. But look, I think the biggest kind of talking point here with this Saturday match would that be I think the clean sheet is very, very important here.
Yeah. I think when you look at Nashville's history, they under Rumba, I think this was their fourth clean sheet. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. 4 clean sheets in 7 matches is pretty incredible, because I think before Rumba, they had 4 clean sheets total, if that, maybe 3 even. So I think that was an identity that Nashville had. And I talked about a little bit of my reaction, my instant reaction. If somebody already watched that, sorry, I'm going to repeat myself. But essentially, in the past, we always back Nashville to be that team that needs only 1 goal to win a game. Sometimes you need 2 to win the game, and that's that. You score twice, most likely Nashville would win, right? Because of how good their defense was. Lately, this season, towards the beginning and until Gary Smith got let go, 1 or 2 goals were just never enough to even tie the game. A lot of times, it was you needed 3, you needed 4 to win it. A lot of times, and that just made it so unsustainable for Nashville, because you can't back your attack to go and score that many goals every game. 1 or 2 goals, that's very doable. And the defense does this part, and you get a draw or a win. Pretty positive outlook. When you go to that category where you need 3, 4, 5 goals to win games, that's when you're really in trouble. And that's what I think Rumba's biggest lasting effect on this team would be, the stability he brought back to the defense. Now, to be fair, he hasn't done that by himself. I think a ton of credit has to go to Walker Zimmerman being back with this team, being able to be there, that anchor. But also, I think Rumba giving that belief, and like giving somebody like Josh Bauer, this is his second start in a row at right back, which is not even his position. And we haven't seen any drop. We're seeing less and less goals conceded, and 4 times again out of 7 getting clean sheets. Really, really big props to Rumba and the whole sort of defensive unit.
I think that that's all true. I I think that New York City FC didn't play particularly well, and I think that we should be clear on that. I really was uncomfortable for huge chunks of the game because it felt like, especially towards the end, that Nashville was holding on. And that's always been my concern watching NSC the last few years when they get a goal early, like they did. And I don't I don't know that playing that way is sustainable. They did get the clean sheet, and I think it's easy to feel positive because it's a 6-point week and it's a clean
How
sheet
long
against
have you
a
been
good
rooting for
team.
this team, Clay? It's been sustainable, for that's been our literal play for the past 3
No,
years.
it hasn't. No, it hasn't. Because how often do we say that's a win that turned into a draw? Like
That's fair.
that it's all I'm saying is that like I think that it's worth looking at that game in two different realms because when Nashville was hunting the goal early, that was what we want to see. Nashville's at home, they're on the front foot. They're doing a lot of chaos ball sort of things. They are going at it. They're standing on their feet. They're going all in on challenges. They're really trying to force the turnover and get it. And it worked. Like that's how they got the goal. I mean, generational miss from Tyler Boyd. So I'm happy that he was able to reclaim it and score a goal. But like, how many times have we seen that where they did the thing they did, they got the goal, and then they just kind of drifted further and further into their own half. And I think that it's fine to point that out. They got a win, and that's good. And they got a few chances, and that's good. But we've seen that game play out this year where they give up the goal and maybe they give up another because they've kind of gone away from what got them the goal. And so I feel really good and I feel like they will improve. And at some point it's about confidence and getting wins on the board and getting clean sheets on the board. And that's all good. I just would like to remind that there are some things in that game that are worrying because that's a performance that we've seen before that didn't work out, that gave up the goal in the last 10 minutes. And I think that that's a fair thing to worry about with this team still.
This show is weird today. Blair just absolutely just calling out Clay for a mistake. Clay being pessimistic about two
I'm not
wins
being
in a row.
pessimistic. I think I'm being fair.
I think it's more realistic. I mean, I don't think we should forget. Like, don't let these 2 wins make you believe that Nashville is not a mid-table team, because they are. Like, I'm sorry, I talked about this 2 weeks ago. You should enjoy the wins. Nashville SC should enjoy the wins, but I think the players will be the first ones to tell you that this is not enough to prove one way or another. I mean, they are still mid-table team by any definition. They can go and lose a couple games going forward. This is But the thing is that what I'm trying to say is that this wasn't expected. When you make a coaching change, when you have a tough schedule coming up, when you have 3 internationals leaving, 2 long-term injuries, you're just not expected to have that many positives when a team that was down in 10th and 11th place now all of a sudden finds themselves in 7th place. It's pretty impressive.
And like I said, there are a lot of positives. I was just reminding the thing that sticks out for me, like I said, is a confidence thing, is Boyd scoring a goal. Boyd's needed a goal. He's played well enough to have scored an MLS goal this year. And Drew Yearwood, like it baffled me. I talked about how it baffled me how he'd have a great game and then be on the bench the next game. And I think that he is locked in, that he is a starter, and that he needs to be playing every single game because he changes the way that midfield looks. And like I said, there's that whole like chaos element. And I think that comes from the Red Bull background where he loses possession and then he goes and gets it right back. There was a sequence in the first half where it looked like he lost possession 3 or 4 times. He gets through 3 guys and then gets the ball in. Like that's something that no other midfielder in this roster could or would do.
Right.
But he comes from that, like, I lost it, I need to get it back right now, which can hurt you at times. Let's be clear. But he dribbles himself kind of into a cul-de-sac and finds his way on the other side because he doesn't give up on the play. And if you remember the goal that came out comes from Sam Surge doing the same thing.
Right.
And
I
pulling
think
himself out of a losing situation essentially and getting a ball in and then scoring a goal. And those are the little moments that maybe we weren't seeing, 2 months ago that we're starting to see now.
yeah, and I think from a midfield perspective too, with Drew Yearwood coming into form, is that we're going to need him pretty much for every match going forward for NSC, especially with the Annabelle Godoy injury, stuff, other things going on in the midfield. That Drew Yearwood's importance and presence in this team is going to continue to grow and increase. So the fact that he's coming in this run of form now, it's very good to see from a Nashville SC perspective. So I'm happy about that. And I mean, for me, these are like the ugly matches that a month ago Nashville SC would not win. And we've seen that before we've seen that before being like, look, it's ugly, but we still got the 3 points out of it. We've said that multiple times from a Nashville SC perspective. We have yet to really say that this year until this week. And it's still nice. Obviously there's a lot of things to improve. Obviously we're still going through this kind of coaching conundrum when it comes to the way the team is set out. But while there is some defensive stability, it seems like the players are responding to Rumba and the stuff that Rumba is doing in the locker room. Even though Clay, you were extremely fair. Valère, I think you're extremely fair when it comes to, yes, this is absolutely a mid-table team. There's definitely some things that do need to improve. It's great to see this team still be able to go out and get those 3 points, and I'm very excited about that. And I hope you are too. Look, that's the 2 matches. Anything else you guys want to talk about when it comes to these 2?
Tyler Boyd, assist and a goal. I know Clay kind of touched on it, but I think that is probably what Nashville paid him for. So
does he get -1 goal though for like not scoring the 1 goal he should have had?
No, don't take away his 1 MLS goal for Nashville SC. Come on now.
It is funny though. Like I saw Valère at halftime, and that was the first thing I said. I was like, I'm happy we're up, but oh my God.
Yeah. Also, I will say Sam Surridge, as soon as Tyler missed that ball, missed that shot, Sam Surridge ran up to him, like lifted him up immediately after. And I asked Tyler Boyd about that, and that's where the brothers comment came through, because you need that. You really need some, because especially with how bad things are going, if your body language is like everything at this point, so getting Sam Surridge there and kind of tell him, hey, I've missed those too. Let's keep going. Let's move on to the next thing.
If anybody knows about missing a sitter, then coming back and scoring a goal, it is Sam Surridge.
See, it's a lot more fun to laugh about it when you do get 6 points out of the week. It's a lot more fun. A decent amount of international soccer to talk about in the next segment, as well as just some updates from a Nashville SC perspective, or just a national soccer perspective in general. And we have another match coming up this week at home. And we'll talk about that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. As mentioned in the past couple segments as well, we do have a Patreon, and you can support the show by subscribing to that. So PharmaSoccer, you can also check out our website at pharmasoccer.com to get all the information as well on what's going on with us and the show and Nashville Soccer. But this segment is normally tuned for different things, like international soccer. Valère talked earlier about his match in Canada and seeing Jacob Schaffelberg. We did have
the match was in Atlanta, to be fair.
Fair, thank you.
Yeah, much
Let it be
closer
noted that
drive.
I was going to let that go, and it was Valère who corrected you.
Yep, I figured. Yep, yeah. Okay, whatever. You guys suck. But look, we had Jacob Schaffelberg that was a part of the national team for Canada. We also had two other people that were a part of international soccer matches that we do need to talk about. Valère, do you first want to give us an update on Anibal Godoy?
Yes, he got injured with Panama, and from the looks of it, it's going to be a little bit of a long-term one. He's definitely out for the Copa America, so that's about a month, maybe, give or take. And I don't know if he's returning to Nashville to do his rehab and whatnot. But he is a captain of Panama, so I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to stay with that team a little bit longer and kind of encourage them, even not on the pitch.
And then we also had Shaq Moore, who was also a part of the U.S. men's national team, who did not play on Sunday, but wasn't necessarily needed as well. Um, Look, I'll talk a little bit about that match just because I did watch it. I think it's good to see the U.S. go and get a good result against a bad team. Bolivia is not very good at all. But to see Christian Pulisic kind of get on the score sheet for the U.S. and to see Balogun get on the score sheet as well, and to continue to get that clean sheet, you need to have those scrappy kind of matches to get somewhere in a group stage, and they did it against Bolivia. So I don't think you could look at it in a bad way at all. It can only be positive for the U.S.
And another day they score 4 or 5 goals in that game. They
Right.
had plenty of chances. I mean, it's one of those. I I got a text from a buddy who said, U.S. soccer Twitter, the only people that can be upset about a 2-0 win in Copa America.
Right.
Like it is what it is. Like you hope that you perform better, but ultimately it's just getting wins on the board and getting results. That's what wins you stuff. And I understand that maybe you're looking for a better performance, but at the end of the day, you just beat a Common Bowl team 2-0. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And looked better the whole time. That's what you'll take. You'll take that every time.
For sure. Euros has been fun to watch as well. I don't know if there's any teams in Euros that stand out to you. Valère kind of put me onto this Austrian team before the Euros started, and I've had a lot of fun watching this team. So I appreciate Valère for kind of getting me into that. Of course, my rooting interest is the first team out of the Euros tournament, which is not shocking. I should get used to this by now, and it's fine. I don't know. Anything stand out to you when it comes to Euros that you want to talk about?
I'm excited for the knockout round. I think France has been really underwhelming, and I was really looking forward to just like see Mbappe like again, just like destroy like international soccer. Like I don't know, call me bandwagon or whatever, but it's fun. It's fun seeing a 24-year-old just like completely like take the world by storm. Also, it would have been really fun to see a masked 24-year-old score a lot of goals. So hoping that will come in the knockout round or at least this last group stage game. Not shocking that England is struggling and the media is losing their minds. I could have guessed that any tournament at any time for anything. So it's good to know that some things stay traditional in soccer. International tournament, English media, English national team, all that. I've watched a lot of the Euros on Arabic coverage, and I have to say I've been switching back and forth to the Fox coverage, and I always go back to the Arabic coverage because I've been a little. It's been a little underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to talk too much crap because these people I know they're trying their best. Actually, I don't know, maybe. But yeah, Alexi Lalas, Chiellini, incredible defender, World Cup winner. I don't know if he won the World Cup, but yeah, he's won a lot. Euro winner himself. I don't know if he's the best on camera. Um, Daniel Sturridge seems fine, I guess. I don't know. I just thought going from like what we have done with CBS.
At least Daniel Sturridge seems excited. Like he seems like he's
Yeah.
fun and enjoying himself there.
I I I can't say nice things about Daniel Sturridge.
Yeah, you're not
Because
allowed. That's fine.
I spent a long time hating him, but I will say I enjoy how annoyed he looks at when Alexi's talking. But I've been watching mostly the UK coverage, but I will say that It was just a real downer yesterday. I typically root for Scotland when they make a major tournament, which is basically never. They've made only like three in my life, I guess, maybe four, and they're going to make the knockout stages for the first time ever. All they have to do is score a goal against Hungary. So what do? They maybe get denied a penalty, but they go out in the 100th minute against Hungary. just just terrible, terrible, unfortunate ending for Scotland in a major tournament yet again.
There was a wild weekend of MLS matches as well. LAFC scoring 6 goals in a match, while still letting in two. There's a lot. I think you're definitely starting to see kind of the top and bottom teams really starting to form, but in both conferences. I'm curious about what's going on with Philadelphia right now. When it comes to their performance, I know theirs probably still on, well, I mean, they can't be. Champions League's been done for a while. Um, I don't know. Any MLS
No,
headlines
that
standing out to you?
yeah, I mean the supporter shield it's shaping up to be a really nice supporter shield like race because you look at Miami, Cincinnati totally in that, and then you also have LAFC, Real Salt Lake, and even LA Galaxy. All five of those are contending for the supporter shield. And if you want to expand it a little bigger, Red Bulls are still in that. So it's a pretty and I guess Colorado for counting Red Bulls. I think it's a pretty it's going to be a pretty good supporter shield like race, and I'm curious to see who ends up getting it and how depending on the team mentality. I'm curious to see who goes for it and who's like, we'll just wait for the playoffs to kind of make this happen. Teams have different strategies to attack these things, but that's been a pretty curious one. And then for Philadelphia, it's really disappointing. I think they just had an aging core that instead of adding to it, they kind of just stalled with it, and that's what happens when you don't invest in your team. I mean that's the truth.
Yeah, and honestly, part of me wonders what's going on in Philadelphia might be what was going on here. You've got an aging core. You've had the same manager for a long time. You've had the same setup for a long time. Like, how much does that equate to what Nashville was going through? And in the past, Philadelphia has been able to get over it because they've had a lot of young players that have come through the ranks. But I feel like it's been a minute since we've talked about them that way. Although they did have a guy sign with City, of course. So
He's 14 or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, but I do think that you have to wonder if what they're dealing with is the same thing that was being dealt with here, where I mean, it's objectively they have a very good manager, but maybe it's just reached its natural end. Of
I
course, we
mean,
said the same thing about SKC last year, and then they turned around and had a great season after this point in the season. So, it we'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting to watch.
I would take Rumba for another month to watch the fall of Jim Curtin at Philadelphia and then be the first team to scoop Jim
Ah.
Curtin up right away. That would be amazing. I would absolutely
Yeah.
take that 1000%.
That's 4D chess from Mike Jacobs there, you know.
Clay, do you want to give us an update since we're just going from international to MLS to while we're just going down here? Let's talk about local soccer as well. Give us the update. Give us the Clay Soccer Minute.
It'll be more than a minute, but there's some fun little nuggets in this. So, obviously, I forgot to do this last week, so I apologize. But we have four local teams playing in the amateur ranked and national leagues. Three of them are women's teams. We're going to start with this show's favorite. Let's just put it on Front Street, the Nashville Rhythm. That over the weekend they drew 2-2 at 865 Alliance. They have one game left in their season. It is at Decatur on Saturday. They have an outside chance at making the WPSL playoffs because it depends on what happens with UFA Gunners, which is the only loss for the season for for the Nashville Rhythm. Here's the interesting part. Decatur plays both teams for its last two games of the season. So if the Rhythm beats Decatur away and Decatur gets a result, either a win or a draw against UFA Gunners, and the Rhythm make the playoffs again, which is now a national playoff setup, not like it used to be. The weirder part of it is Decatur has like so much support in WPSL. They've set so many WPSL attendance records. They had over 2,000 at their most recent home game, which is basically
Wow.
10 times more the biggest crowd that we saw at the Rhythm this year. So, like, regardless of what happens, it's just going to be such a great environment for the Rhythm to go down and play in because you do not see those crowds in the WPSL. Now, on the other end of the Southeast Conference standings, you have Nashville Wolves, FC Nashville Wolves, who have played 6 games this year. I want you guys to guess how many goals they've scored.
I'm guessing it's a low amount just based on the fact that I'm gonna go 4.
Blair's got it. They've been outscored 38-0 in 6 matches this year. They have 2 games left. They will play both games at home. They're at Davidson Academy. On Thursday, they play 865 Alliance. And on Saturday, they play Chattanooga FC. What I will say is, even though they've given up 38 goals this year, their goalkeeper is unbelievable, which Blair can attest to. So I'm very curious as to how that play out. They get the ball. They almost got one against the Rhythm, so I hope that they can get one and maybe hang their hat on that for the season. Now, outside of the WPSL, you've got TSC, Tennessee Soccer Club. They play in the USL. On the USL women's side, they're currently in first place in the South Central Division. They're coming off a 10-0 win over Athens SC and a 1-0 win over Greenville Liberty in their last week. They have a couple games left at Birmingham Legion on Thursday and at Asheville SC on Saturday. Chances are, if they win one of those games, they will be the champion. Asheville is in second place, so should be interesting to watch there if they'll win their division and go into the playoffs. And then on the men's side, TSC men beat East Atlanta away 4-1 last week. They play Athens SC on Wednesday. That is here at Nolensville High School. They're currently second in their division. They've got no chance of finishing first. They've got a few more games left of their season, but that is your local soccer wrap up.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Clay. I appreciate that. We have a Nashville Soccer Club match, though, coming up this week. Not a 2-match week, just a 1-match week. But we have a big match against Inter Miami. Tickets are probably going to be trickling down in price when people do realize that Messi and Suarez will both not be playing because they are both at Copa America. So definitely not as much hype for this match as normal just because, Miami's big players will not be there. But that definitely should not be discounting the way that Miami has played this season, as they are still atop the Supporters Shield standings.
When I figure out how to unmute, I will do it. Yeah, I mean, they're still very good. They keep winning. They find a way to win no matter what. They have draft picks and these younger signings kind of coming up and providing goals and assists for them, very vital ones too. So, it's not going to be an easy game. They're also extremely, extremely good on the road. They have 6 wins on the road. The only team to have more wins than them on the road is Cincinnati with 7. They've only lost once on the road as well. So, again, this is a very good team, regardless of Messi and Suarez. They do have tons of injuries. They obviously are missing their 2 big stars for Copa America. But Nashville has matched up really well with Inter Miami in the past. I would assume they'll match up really well with them again. Now, Nashville hasn't been able to beat Inter Miami since Messi joined. They've gotten a handful of draws, it feels like, and only lost away once. So this is just since Messi joined in. Of course, before that, Nashville had pretty much the upper hand in the series. So all in all, I think it's going to be another exciting match. I think it's going to be one of those every time these two teams play against each other, even before Messi, something happened. It was always an exciting match, and I think that's going to kind of continue on that trend, and we'll see what happens. But to me, I think Nashville looks at this Miami side as good as they are and say they can probably still get a win.
Well, just make the prediction right now, Valer. Make the prediction and plugs. Never mind.
I will go ahead and predict a 2-1 Nashville SC win.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Valer. You cut out a little bit right when you made the prediction. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Sure.
Clay.
I think I am going to say that you should, one, go to Kicking It 615 and give them money because they do good work. You should also check out Nashville Soccer Archive if you have items from Nashville soccer history, or you're not sure if they're related to Nashville soccer history and you want to ask. Well, you should hit me up at Clay Lasol on Instagram or Twitter, and I'll let you know. And then you should say hi to me if you see me on Saturday at the game as we watch Nashville SC win 3-1 at home over Inter Miami. I tried the reverse jinx last week. Part of me wanted to do it again, but I can't predict losses back-to-back weeks. So I'm going 3-1, and Hani Mukhtar scores twice. He's due.
3-2 win for Nashville at home against Miami. 2 goals from Hani, 1 goal from Teal Bunbury is getting a goal on Saturday as well. Y'all, thank you so much again for listening to the show. Really, I was just about to say thanks for playing. I don't know why I was going to say that, but thank you so much for listening to Pharmaceutical Soccer. We appreciate it.
For the record, I said 2-1 win for Nashville SC.
I saw your hand, and when I said, okay, we're going to cut off and go to Clay, then your audio came in that only said 2-1. So that's perfect. We still have that ready to go. So thank you so much again for listening to the show. We do appreciate it. We hope to talk to you next week as well, and we hope we're just as happy talking about another win for Nashville. And yeah, have a great week, everybody. Enjoy Euros and Copa.